What's up, YouTube? Nick here to give you my very first, officially, my very first character analysis for literally any fictional character ever. So you guys might be a little surprised by this, considering the last video I made on Vegeta, and so I figure I may as well let you all know that, as you probably have already noticed by now, I deleted that video. And the reason why is because I've been going back and rewatching all my previous videos, from my very first one to my most most recent one, and in particular, I felt like the Vegeta video was just not really all that good. I really didn't like how it turned out. I didn't feel like, it's just something I don't know, something about that video just came off as feeling very rushed, very last minute. I was just running my mouth blah 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 blah, just not really presenting my points in the best way possible. It wasn't necessarily that I disagreed with what I said in that video. It was more how I said it. It was rushed. I also felt like I was acting maybe a little borderline elitist in that video, because I was talking about Vegeta and some of the misconceptions fans have about him. I felt like something about the way I said it could have been misconstrued as being a little elitist, and if you do feel that way, but I was acting like that, I apologize for that. But this is, as I was watching that video, I realized that the video that I really wanted to do about Vegeta, rather than talking about, whether is he overrated or not, was to do a full-fledged character analysis of him, where I give an objective an objective description of his evolution, his character development in Dragon Ball Z, as well as, maybe deconstructing some of the misconceptions fans tend to have about his character along the way. So to start off, so Vegeta is one of the most, if not the most popular character in Dragon Ball Z. He's lauded as being, a perfect foil to Goku's character, a great anti-hero, a great rival, and just overall a very well-written and very fascinating character. I would agree. I do agree that he is a very well-written character, and he does go through a lot of development over the course of a series, which I'm going to detail, starting with his first portrayal, his first appearance in the Saiyan Saga. Now, in the Saiyan Saga, when we're first introduced to him, he's more or less he doesn't have too much of a character at this point. He's just a villain, a straight-up bad guy. There's no redeeming qualities to him. We don't know too much about his past in the Saiyan Saga. It's not really it isn't really detailed as much as it is later on. What we do know about him, though, is that he is the leader of the last surviving Saiyans, Raditz and Nappa, and that he is extremely cold-hearted and very ruthless. In fact, it's implied that he's even more ruthless and more sadistic than his comrades, including Nappa. And some of the things that support this notion include when Raditz dies. If you all remember, when Raditz died, and Vegeta and Nappa talk about what they can do with the Dragon Balls. It was Nappa that suggested that they revive Raditz with the power of the Dragon Balls. But Vegeta completely dismisses this idea because he believes that Raditz deserved to die. Because Raditz had a weak power level, because he lost to a low-class Saiyan, and because in Vegeta's opinion, Raditz deserved to stay dead. Another example is, when Nappa suggests that they spawn a new Saiyan Empire, Vegeta is completely disgusted by that idea. He says that no, I don't want that. I don't want brats running around with higher power levels than our own. He's also much more prone to violence. He killed the Cybermen. He killed it for losing to Tien, and ultimately he even kills Nappa, his own comrade, for losing to his fight with Son Goku, all because he did not view him as strong enough and as powerful enough to honor the Saiyan name, and of course to honor Vegeta himself. And as we see in his fight with Goku, he's very condescending. He thinks very highly of himself and his own nobility and his own social status. He constantly belittles Kakarot / Goku for being a low-class Saiyan, while Vegeta is of higher class. He is the prince of all Saiyans, and so he views it as his obligation to defeat Goku in battle and to prove his own superiority over him. And his determination, his sheer willpower to completely destroy Goku is indicative of this. And as he fights to the bitter end, and he even becomes an Uzaru through a method developed by the Saiyan military. He becomes Uzaru, and is able to and continues on his rampage, because he views himself as so superior that he cannot stomach the thought of losing to a low class. So he's just constantly pushing forward, and he needs to kill Goku. He needs to defeat Goku. He needs to prove himself superior to Goku, because in his own eyes, no one should be more powerful than he is. And then we see, so this is basically his whole character in the Saiyan saga. And hang on, I'm just gonna bring it back. But then we see his character in the Namek arc, and admittedly, while he's more or less the same in terms of being this arrogant, this self-absorbed, this power-hungry, battle-obsessed, cold-hearted bastard, he is still that same character, but we learn a little more about him in this arc. We learn that he's more cunning. He shows guerrilla fighting tactics, and how he very selectively kills each of Frieza's men, using sneak attacks and stuff like that. He killed. He obviously the first one he killed was Kui. He killed Apul. He killed Goldo. While his back was turned, he killed Burter and Raccoon. Although Goku was the one who Goku incapacitated them, but Vegeta was the one who delivered the final killing blows. He kills Jace, obviously, in a one-on-one fight. And he doesn't kill Ginyu, but he comes pretty dang close to that. Obviously, he kills Dodoria, and he kills Zarbon. Although Zarbon, kicks his ass the first time, he kills Zarbon the second time after he gets the Zenkai boost, because by then he's certain of his own ability to defeat him, to defeat Zarbon. What's interesting, however, is that despite Vegeta's cunning, and despite his pride and his arrogance, he is not above teaming up and cooperating with other individuals to accomplish his own goal, even if they're more or less enemies of his. And of course, it's obvious in his shaky alliance with Krillin and Gohan that he's very willing to that he's willing to put his pride aside, at least for the time being, and to to team up with these two people who previously he was going to kill. but then he's just that determined to obtain his goal of immortality that he's willing to form an alliance with them. What's interesting also is that for all Vegeta's confidence and assurance he has in his own battle power, when he fights Frieza for the first time on Namek, when he confronts Frieza, okay, at first he's scared. He's completely terrified because it's Frieza. Frieza is an enormously powerful villain. And obviously he was eventually, as we find out, Frieza had more than enough power to kill Vegeta with ease, but he was only Vegeta was more than willing to team up with Krillin and Gohan only because he was confident that both their powers, that all three of their powers combined, would be enough to overwhelm Frieza. So that's another example of him like cooperating with others to accomplish his goals, even though at the end it is a very selfish goal, and that at the end of the day he couldn't really care less about whether they live or they die. Is another interesting example of how he's willing to, use his cunning and his like tactics, kind of like to use his tactician side to work together as a team, and to to work towards his ultimate goal. Another interesting facet about Vegeta, a much more interesting facet that we see, is his history. We learn in the Namek arc, we learn of his history with Frieza. We learn that he had this relationship with, we learn of his relationship with Frieza, and how he worked for him, and he worked as like and how he was like dissatisfied with the idea of working with someone else to obtain how he was like dissatisfied in how he was supposed to work for Frieza, who he didn't like, because he didn't like, as arrogant as he was, he didn't like the idea of being submitted to anyone. Vegeta only wanted to work for himself. But a common misconception, though, is that people tend to confuse the relationship between Frieza and Vegeta. They say that Frieza like enslaved him from birth, that Vegeta had no choice, but he was like completely like stripped of all his free will, and that and that him wanting to kill Frieza was because he was so torn apart by the loss of his planet and of his family and of his race that he deserved to kill Frieza. That's not true. That's actually not true. And you can see in a Bardock special, which is in the Japanese version, which you can see it. You can see that Vegeta was actually very respectful towards Frieza. He called him, from a young age, as a kid, he called him Frieza-sama, Lord Frieza. Like, he says how he wanted to pay his respects to him, and, and it was more Zarbon and Dodoria who were, like, more condescending, but it was never abuse, and Vegeta and Frieza actually, appeared to have showed that same respect towards Vegeta, despite, again, despite being, completely, like, completely evil and not caring at all about the Saiyan race, because of how scared he was of like the Super Saiyan like legend being his own downfall. However, despite Vegeta's respect for Frieza as a kid, his pride, again, like I said, his pride does not allow him to to be so like to submit to someone when he could just, enjoy the thrill of killing and conquering and slaughtering people himself, and to become this powerful, feared tyrant all by himself. And what's another thing is that people say that Vegeta was like a tragic character because of how he lost his family, but as he tells Dodoria before he kills him in the Namek arc, Vegeta straight up tells Dodoria before he kills him, when he finds out that from Dodoria that Frieza killed Planet Vegeta, he straight up tells him, I don't care. Like, Vegeta straight up tells Dodoria, I don't care about my family, my planet, my race. Like, I literally, like, verbatim, I don't give a damn. And then, of course, he kills him and then goes back to hunting for the Dragon Balls. And even in the Bardock special, when, at the very end, when you see, like, how completely, like, indifferent he was towards the news of his race dying, even though at this point he thought it was by a meteorite, he was completely didn't care as a kid. He was like, whatever, fine, I'm just gonna keep munching on this, like, alien bug or something like that. So yeah, from a young age, he was very ruthless. He respected Frieza, although, and you could interpret that differently. You could say that, you could very well make the case that Vegeta, like, respecting Frieza was just an act to, like, get under his good graces. And he does actually say something along those lines in the Namek saga, when he says, oh, I was never submitted to you. When he tells Frieza, I was never submitted to you, I was just pretending to be like this and that and the other, just so I could betray you, eventually. that would be very in character if that were true. It probably is true, but the fact remains that, Frieza's relationship with Vegeta is much more complex and much more multi-layered than, oh, he was his slave. He kind of was, in the sense that his pride, like, would not allow him to work for anyone, but he wasn't in the traditional sense. And what I mean by that, he wasn't in the sense of, like, he was completely, like, against his will. He was more than happy to carry out his orders by Frieza. He loved his job. The Saiyan blood, he was just so happy to kill and slaughter innocents. Again, power was everything to him. And another facet about his character that we see here, obviously, his obsession with power in the Saiyan saga displays itself here. And it displays itself in how he is completely like obsessed with becoming a Super Saiyan. And what's interesting is that his obsession with becoming a Super Saiyan is so great that when he finally confronts Frieza, and when he finally, like, when all of his whole notion of becoming a Super Saiyan gets completely shattered, and when Frieza proves to him once and for all that he did not obtain the Super Saiyan form that he desired, that shock and that fear and that terror and that misery is so much that it drives him to tears for the first time. And King Kai even notes how, like, Vegeta was afraid for the first time because he thought that he stood up to Frieza, and because of how much power he thought he had, but he didn't have it. It all comes back to his whole, like, power is everything, like, mentality. Like, his whole mentality is just, I need to be powerful. Power is everything. If you are weak, you're worthless. That's his philosophy at this point. At this point in the series, is that if you're weak, you're worthless. Plain and simple. But then we see a more human side to him after Frieza kills him. Well, before, I should say. In the Namek arc, on his deathbed, Frieza is about to kill Vegeta. Okay, so how it goes down is Frieza, so Vegeta is like trying to talk to Goku, right? And then Frieza, like, shoots him as he's lying down. And then when Frieza shoots Vegeta, Goku is completely, like, Goku is very angry, right? He tells Frieza, how could you do that? Vegeta could not defend himself. What you did was cold-hearted murder. And Vegeta actually chastises Goku, as he did when he killed Burter and Raccoon. He chastises Goku for being too soft-hearted, and for telling him that he tells him that he will never obtain the Super Saiyan form without a hardened heart. A hardened heart. It's a very interesting dynamic where it shows that even on his deathbed, Vegeta is still, like, still has it in him to chastise Goku for being soft-hearted, and it really highlights the differences between Goku and Vegeta's personalities, and how, like, Goku is more soft-hearted and Vegeta is more cold-hearted, and how, like, those two personalities, like, kind of mesh together and collide with each other and clash with each other. It really highlights, like, the yin-yang relationship between them. And of course, eventually Goku does find it within himself to harden his heart and to allow himself to be overcome by that sadistic rage, and to actually willingly kill Frieza, or attempt to kill Frieza. And obviously, the more notable part of Vegeta's death, the human side to him that I was talking about, displays itself in how he is willing to, how he actually sheds tears of grief and tears of sadness. He actually shows some semblance of emotion on his deathbed, as he like begs, as he literally reduces himself to beg, as he reduces himself to begging for Goku to kill Frieza because he feels that Frieza should die by a Saiyan's hand. This is a very significant, moment for Vegeta character-wise, because number one, obviously we just saw him shed tears of fear, and now we're seeing him shed tears of sadness. So we're seeing his more emotional side. We're seeing him actually reduce himself. This is the first time we see any semblance of humility to his character, because he actually asks and nigh begs Goku to like do what he failed to do, and that is kill Frieza. That's what makes this so significant. Another aspect is that it appears that, although it's much more subtle in the Japanese subs and the manga than it is in the dub, it appears that he does seem to have some sort of semblance, some sort of sadness that Frieza killed Vegeta. Well, but the sadness comes from the fact that he felt that Vegeta felt that he was betrayed, and that the Saiyans were betrayed for being the loyal servants that they were. Not slaves, but loyal servants. And how Frieza just completely eradicated all of them. He killed Planet Vegeta despite how loyal the Saiyans were to him, and he uses this as basically like an impetus to spur Goku onto that rage that would hopefully eventually cause him to find that power within him to kill Frieza. And as Goku notes on his deathbed, it was very difficult for Vegeta to actually reduce himself to that level of actually he begged Goku, a low class Saiyan, to defeat Frieza. Goku notes how his pride was just completely broken at that point. Even though Goku did admit that he hated Vegeta, he still acknowledges that it was a difficult thing for him to do in that moment, and that's why he gave him that proper burial, that respectful, that proper burial. So because he felt that it was something that Vegeta needed after, that he deserved after all the shit that he went through, in terms of his own pride being shattered, and in terms of the Saiyans, his race's honor being shattered. Again, it's more complex because, like I said, Vegeta doesn't care about the Saiyan race. He cares about their honor, and he attaches it to himself. He attaches that to his own personal ego. It's why he calls himself the Prince of all Saiyans, even though he doesn't use that term too much in the manga and the subs. But he still has that attachment to his ego, that that title is important to him. Obviously, he's and obviously, at the end of a Namek arc, when he's revived, he more or less regresses back to that, fuck Kakarot, fuck everyone who is not as powerful as I am mode. He does. Obviously, he does show, some level of, I guess some level of, restraint, I suppose, in how he deals with, the Z fighters, and how he deals with the planet Earth, and that he doesn't just outright destroy them like he was planning to, but his obsessions with being powerful and being the best fighter that he can be is still there. That has not changed yet. Okay, so obviously, this becomes prominent in the Android/the Cell saga. Now, at this point, obviously, you all know he has sex with Bulma, and he conceives Trunks, right? And that conception, gives way to the future Trunks' birth, and his relationship with Bulma and Trunks at this point of a series, if you can even really call it a relationship, is very, very rocky. And, you know, because at this point, again, it's like I said and have kept saying, and will probably continue to keep saying in this video, is that he's just completely obsessed with power at this point. Vegeta is completely obsessed with power, to the point where he views you as worthless if you are too weak. And a prime example of this, during the fight between Piccolo and Dr. Gero, when Dr. Gero, in a last-ditch effort to escape, he blasts the entire, like, mountain, the entire area that he's in, the horizon and everything. And as he is doing this, Bulma and Baby Trunks are flying on the Capsule Corp, like, airship, and along with Yajirobe, and they get caught in the crossfire and are about to die. Future Trunks saves their lives, but Vegeta refuses to. Not because he didn't notice, but because he was totally indifferent. And Future Trunks even calls him out on this. And Future Trunks, he asks him, "How could you let Bulma and your own son die?" To which Vegeta responds, "I just don't care about them. They're weaklings with low power levels. They're worthless. They're completely worthless to him." That's all. He couldn't care less because, again, power and strength, his obsession with power and strength is still there. In fact, if anything, I would argue that his obsession with battle power and fighting prowess and strength is amplified in the Androids arc, more so than in the previous 2 arcs. The reason I say that is this. At this point, Vegeta becomes a legendary Super Saiyan that he has always wanted to become. And that gets to him in the sense that he is now, like, on this, basically, this high. He's high on the feeling of, oh, I have obtained the legendary Super Saiyan, and he boasts of how the prince himself, he has reclaimed his throne, and he makes that grandiose entrance, saving Goku's life against Android 19, and he also boasts that the pure evil in his heart has allowed him to obtain that form. What really seals the deal is how he has, what really, like, sort of cements this notion of how that form gets to his head, the Super Saiyan form gets to his head. He is much more quick to fight and to pick fights in this arc in a much less subtle way. He's less willing to team up with others, rather than as he was in the Namek arc when he teamed up with Krillin and Gohan. He doesn't team up with anyone in this saga. He wants to fight all of his battles by himself to prove himself superior. Case in point, he fights Android 19, he kills him. He wants to fight Dr. Gero, but Piccolo intervenes. He fought Android 18, but he lost. And so we see how that Super Saiyan form has just kind of gotten to him and affected his ability to reason, so to speak, because his pride has just become so inflated. What's interesting also is that obviously this reveals itself in most prominently in his fight against Semi-Perfect Cell. When he fights Semi-Perfect Cell, obviously, like, as you all know, he not only allows Cell to become perfect, he actively assists him in that endeavor. He assists Cell in absorbing Android 18 just because he wants that challenge of a good fight, and because his pride and his arrogance as a Super Saiyan has gotten to him and affected his ability to reason. Excuse me. What really, and obviously, like, you know, Cell kicks his ass. He leaves Vegeta incapacitated, unable to fight. And Trunks tries to defeat Cell, but he can't do it either. And then Vegeta spends another year in the hyperbolic time chamber with Future Trunks. And by this point, he seems to have somewhat somewhat, by that point, he seems to have somewhat gotten himself more in control of his Super Saiyan, his desire to fight and to be strong, and like he isn't as willing to jump into the fight with Cell as he is now. Obviously, as he was then. Obviously, because Cell kicked his ass, and because like, but what's even more interesting though, more than that, is Future Trunks. His relationship with Future Trunks changed. You see, because before Vegeta spent that year in the hyperbolic time chamber with Future Trunks, he straight up said he couldn't care less about his son's life. He didn't care. Future Trunks himself notes that he's evil through and through. But he actually tries to avenge his son's life when Cell kills him. This is probably, at this point, the most significant character-establishing, character-defining moment for Vegeta, because we actually see him just for once, definitively and very clearly do something for someone else. Put himself in harm's way. Put himself in harm's way for someone else. He actually shows that he is willing to, to fight for someone other than himself, and that's very significant. And and even though he ultimately fails, that was still a very noble act. That was still a very interesting, a very unexpected act. I would argue was that him actually showing some level of empathy and some level of caring for another individual. That was that's very powerful. That act in and of itself is very powerful. Now, this attachment, this him willing to fight for someone other than himself, is ultimately it's more pronounced, and it becomes a full-fledged, it becomes a central part of his character in the Buu Saga. That's when he is willing to set aside his obsession with power and his idea that power is everything, and the idea that if you are weak, you aren't worth anything. He's willing to set that aside in the Buu Saga. He actually develops a heroic side to him, and he becomes a full-fledged hero in the Buu Saga. Not an anti-hero, but an actual full-fledged hero. He shows that obviously, his character does, go back to, when he becomes Majin Vegeta, he willingly allows himself to be controlled by Babidi because he misses his days of, being that ruthless Saiyan prince, and that he wants to become that again. He wants to go back to the way he was before Bulma, before Trunks, before everything. But despite that, he still, after his fight with Goku, he still finds it within himself to sacrifice his life for Bulma, for Trunks, for the Earth. He even does it for Kakarot/Goku. And that was what was so powerful about that moment. The single most powerful Vegeta moment in the entire series by far. Easily his best moment. The best Vegeta moment in the entire series was in the Buu Saga, that scene in the Buu Saga, because, again, it goes back to what I was saying. Before, all he cared about was power, and class, and social status. It was all he could see was social status and power. He could not stomach the thought of Goku, a worthless, low-class Saiyan warrior, besting him in battle. He was obsessed with just fuck Kakarot, fuck Goku, fuck everything, fuck everyone. Just no. But here, actually, he is willing to show a level of that he actually cares for Kakarot. And it's so amazing because like it's powerful, and it makes you really really what's the word I'm looking for? Really reconsider the direction of his whole character. It progresses into him looking for self-worth in an individual beyond his class, or beyond, oh, he's too weak to live. He's willing to, he actually sacrifices himself for the one person who has consistently, in his own eyes, humiliated him and served as a complete a thorn in his side throughout all of Dragon Ball Z. And I'm sorry, I know I'm just kind of like going off on a tangent with the whole like his sacrifice against Majin Buu, but that is my personal favorite moment of his, so that's probably why. As we see, it's interesting though, because when he does eventually get revived and he comes back via Fortune Teller Baba's magic, we see that he still has not forsaken his Saiyan pride. Well, I shouldn't say Saiyan pride. It's more like a self pride, because again, like, he views his Saiyan pride as like an extension of himself. But he displays that, and the way he displays that. Oh, before I talk about that though. Speaking of his whole dynamic, his whole relationship with Goku, and how he views Goku in the Buu Saga, the second most, in fact, it might even be more like significant than his sacrifice. Him willing to fuse with Goku permanently to become Vegeta and to defeat Majin Buu, just so he could avenge Bulma and Trunks, just so he could save the lives of everyone on Earth who he had previously detested. Him willing to do that, to fuse with Goku permanently, with some reluctance at first, but still. Again, like, Goku, the one person who he absolutely despised throughout the entire series. Low-class Saiyan warrior, didn't think anything of him before, hated him. Now he's fusing with him, becoming the same person as him. Very significant, very character-defining moment. A very character-defining moment of his. Another, but again, going back to what I was saying about Saiyan pride, his pride, so to speak, it's still present, and it's present in the sense that, okay, during the final fight against Kid Buu, he chastises Goku for not showing his Super Saiyan 3 form when they were fighting as Majin Vegeta, and when he was fighting Goku as Majin Vegeta. He knew that Goku was holding back, and he chastises him for holding back his Super Saiyan 3 form. More than that, he actually, when Goku refuses to fuse for a second time under the Batara, when Goku literally crushes the Batara earrings, and Vegeta actually compliments him on that, and Goku says, we're going to fight Majin Buu our own way, we're not going to rely on the Batara, and Vegeta compliments him on that, saying that, that was spoken like a true Saiyan warrior. So it's interesting because it's a happy medium. He still has that Saiyan / self-pride, but he does, okay, again, he has that pride, but he still has it, and it's not like it's not like an unhealthy obsession where it's like everyone who is weaker than me is worthless. He actually cares for again, it's like, it just goes to show really that his character development was at its peak, and really was at its best in this saga, in the Majin Buu saga. But perhaps the single best, most character-defining slash character-establishing moment Vegeta had in this saga was when he gives his famous speech to Goku during the fight against Kid Buu. And it's similar to another speech Piccolo gave in the anime after the Namek arc, where Vegeta reflects on his whole history with Goku, his hatred for him, his desire to become stronger than him, and ultimately he is willing to accept the fact that Goku is better than him. And here's the thing. He accepts that, and he's willing to fight with Goku to save the Earth. And that's what makes his character in the Buu Saga so amazing. His development so amazing is that throughout all of Dragon Ball Z, it's just been power obsessed, power obsessed, power obsessed. I must become powerful. I must become a Super Saiyan. If you're weak, you're nothing. I must defeat Kakarot. I must become the best fighter I was ever meant to be. But here, in the Buu Saga, he throws all that away. He is willing to free himself from all that. He's willing to he's willing to become a new person. And he's willing to say, he's willing to just, you're better than me, Kakarot. You are the best. That's just, really, this is that one speech alone, as well as him willing to fuse with Goku, and of course his sacrifice against Majin Buu. These three moments, especially his speech, these three moments mark the peak of his character development. Without the Majin Buu Saga, without his development in the Majin Buu Saga, Vegeta arguably, Vegeta isn't nearly as fleshed out and developed and as just enjoyable a character as he is here. But here, where he actually overcomes that, and he's willing to step aside for that, and he's willing to, set his pride aside. He still has his pride, but he is willing to put it aside for the greater good. It is amazing. His whole speech to Goku, admitting Goku is better than him, is amazing. His sacrifice is amazing. Him wanting to love and care for his family is amazing, and the Earth as well. His transition from a villain to a hero is amazing, and obviously, no one can minimize that. I certainly won't, because I enjoy the hell out of it. But yeah, no, basically to wrap things up, I'm sorry, it's like 12:43 in the morning, and I'm so tired. It's past midnight. I'm just, I've been going off on a complete tangent this whole thing, but whatever. Just to wrap things up. So yeah, Vegeta, in essence, is so I'm just gonna give my final thoughts on him as a character, just my own personal opinion here. Vegeta, honestly, I think that he deserves all the praise that he gets. I believe that there are a lot of people, though, that like him for the wrong reasons. They tend to misunderstand his character. And to be honest, I don't think that he would deserve all of the love that he gets without the Majin Buu Saga. That was where, you all saw me, I was just going on and on and on about how amazing his character was in that arc. He was easily the best character in that arc. It was where his character came full circle. It was great, it was amazing, it was so good. Him willing to humble himself, it was the story of an arrogant, spiteful villain willing to humble himself very, very slowly, and finally to have all that come full circle is just nothing short of amazing. So yeah, that's basically it. I mean, yeah. So I'll probably be doing. I'll be redoing some more of my videos in the future, so be on the lookout for that. I've been wanting to redo my Masako no Zawa video for a while now, which I may upload that after this. Probably, so be on the lookout for that. As well as probably my video on Goku being a bad father and stuff like that. Why he isn't, well, you know, is he a bad father or not? So yeah, comment, rate, subscribe, all that jazz. Peace, and have a nice day.